Are you pushing this, forcing it through, or do you try to keep the sediment?
No, you're trying to push it through.
So is there a grain in this?
Yeah.
So is the grain going to be pushed through?
No.
Or that's too hard?
It's too hard. It's too gummy and gelatinous to pass through the sieve. So what you'll see at the end of it, you've got this.
This is the grain.
That's the grain itself. You can see it here in this packets here.
And does the grain harden up while it's doing this process? Or?
So is that all grain?
That's pretty much all grain. So this is my personal stash from home.
Yeah.
That I use to make kefir every day. And literally now all you're going to do is that's ready for consumption. So you can make that really sexy and do stuff with it, just like yogurt.
Yeah.
Whereas the grains now, what I want you guys to do is then move the grains back into the jar.
Yeah.
So then all you do...
Just knock this guy straight in there.
I think you might have forgotten the milk as well.
Yeah, I got it.
My buddy. So all you're doing is you're reusing this, and in each batch, roughly, you should get 10% growth per week of fermentation.
So 10% growth of grains?
Yes.
Sure. So does that mean that the grain itself will expand, or does that mean that there should be like another little grain forming that then grows, or?
Yes.
So like it multiplies, or it just expands the one grain?
Both. So you actually get both. So you get some little pieces that kind of just fall off.
Yeah.
And they actually start to grow larger as well. And then you might get some of the bigger ones that just grow fatter. So what I want you to do is just see this kefir makes it really easy.
Yeah.
You just filter that line with the milk.
Yeah.
And is it best to use the same jar or go back into a clean jar?
You can clean it, but at home, like I just want something rough and ready.
Yeah.
So I don't even bother cleaning it. I'll like wash it out once a week.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. But you can wash it out each batch if you like, if you've got time.
And what essentially is going on with this guy here on the top?
Yeah, so what you've got is these things are not necessary. You can just use a normal mason jar.
Yeah.
Just for consumers at home that want something simple, literally.
Make it a bit more user friendly for.
It's more user friendly.
And whatnot.
Exactly, because it's got the strainer built in to the actual lids itself.
Oh, right.
So they can just pour it once it's ready.
Yeah.
And it's got measuring things, it's got lines, but other than that, you can use any
What's
mason
the
jar.
second line for?
The second line is for water kefir.
Oh, right.
So we'll get onto that.
Yep.
And so what we've also developed is a premix to make it easy. So what the premix does is it gives it a bit more nutrition. So it's got colostrum, whey protein, and a prebiotic fiber in it. So it just gives a bit more nutrition into the kefir, but it's purely optional.
To help it feed.
It helps it feed, and it also boosts the grain growth.
Okay,
So I love this because I produce this on a commercial scale. So I need to do this, but you don't need to do that. You just need to put it into milk, and then you can use that for lots of things. So it's a 24-hour fermentation, so it's pretty quick.
If it's gone too far, like for example, we got some milk kefir going, we put it on Saturday, and then me and Danny were both off for 2 days.
Yep.
We've come in today and it looks like it's all separated, like all the liquid and the...
Looks like curd.
It looks like curd, yeah.
Yes.
So it's like a big old gnarly bowl of smelly ricotta or something.
Mm-hmm. So what that is, it's very dependent on temperature.
Sure.
So the hotter it is, the faster it's going to ferment.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're taking lactose from the milk and creating lactic acid. So as that sort of temperature drives the process, it hits to a certain point where I think it's about it's less, probably about 3.8, where you'll see the splitting between curds and whey.
Yeah, of course. Just like adding vinegar to milk or something like that.
To make ricotta.
Sure, yeah.
Dairy, you can just use coconut.
Coconut is perfectly fine. What you'll find is if you use coconut milk though, you might get to a point, firstly you won't get growth. You get very minuscule growth. And then secondly, you might get to a point where they start to disintegrate. It just means that it doesn't have enough food. Sometimes there's enough food in there from the coconut to sustain it. Other times it'll just disintegrate, which just means you need to just get it into a batch of lactose or milk to feed it up and get it back. You don't need to consume the yogurt, just to refresh it. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions as we go as well.
You need to be in a tightly sealed container.
That's a good question. So you can do it with lid on or lid closed or lid open. So the difference between doing lid on and lid open, so lid closed, is that lid closed is more probiotic benefits because it's more anaerobic. So it's going to favor lactic acid bacteria, but it will produce a sour product. If you keep the lid slightly open, more aerobic type fermentation, you're going to encourage more yeast, which is a good thing as well. but yeast will produce more alcohol. So it depends on what purpose you want to use this actual kefir for. But ideally, like traditionally, it would be slightly open, which would be more yeasty, bready type flavor. The closed fermentation is going to be really gummy and slimy and really sour. So it's really up to what you guys want to do in terms of the end product or end goal that you want.
With the alcohol level, how high is it? Is it like
It's
1%?
tiny. It's tiny. You're talking well below 0.05, which is the legal limit. 0.5, sorry, which is the legal limit. Yes, but whereas with water kefir, different story, but we'll come back to that. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a simple process. You strain it out, you start again. Premix is optional, just a milk-based fermentation. So how do you describe those flavors, you think? There you go.
Very sour,
Cheesy.
cheesy,
Yes.
musty.
Yep. Bready, a slight breadiness from the yeast.
It's not the most pleasant thing I've ever tasted, I'm not going to lie.
No, that's cool. It's cool. It's acquired taste.
Yeah.
It's definitely acquired taste. But what you can do is you can actually flavor it up with some honey,
It's real cheesy,
some
eh?
berries. It's cheesy.
And real bready, man.
It's bready because that's the yeast in there.
Yeah.
But what I like to do,
No, not in there.
that's right. That's a dirty one. That's it. Okay, guys.
Is it possible in that process, if you add anything to infuse with it, will it damage the process?
Yes. So if you do with a first ferment or primary ferment, you keep it pretty pure.
Yeah.
But what you can do is do a second ferment, is where you can put some lemon peels or orange peels, pieces of fruit, and that kind of makes it more interesting. But that's the point where I would experiment, but keep the primary ferment pretty clean and pretty simple. So you mentioned before, Tim, about the separation.
Correct.
What you can also do at the point, some people actually take it to that point of separation because you get whey out of it and then you get the curds. And then you can press that curd into a cheese. So it's another medium to actually make a probiotic cheese.
Sure.
So it's going to have loads of lactic acid bacteria. You press it. You can even make labneh out of that. You can put some herbs and salt and pepper and chili flakes or whatever.